Welcome to the Group Answers podcast. I'm your host, Brian Daniel. This is the weekly show designed specifically for pastors, disciple makers, group pastors, and small group leaders. Truly, we are created to help anyone with bottom line responsibilities for discipleship. Our goal is simple: to resource, train, and encourage you in the vital work of discipleship. This is the Group Answers podcast. Let's do it. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone, and I'm Brian Daniel, as always, for Group Answers, and today we have the Discipleship Pastor at Second Baptist Houston, a little church down there in Texas, Austin Gentry. Austin, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And for those of you watching on YouTube, and those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, you may not even know that that's an option. That's a recent thing with the Group Answers show. You will notice the disparity in attire here. And for those of you listening, I'm just sorry that you're missing this, but I fully expected Austin to show up in like ball cap and t-shirt, and he's wearing a blazer. And here I am in a hoodie and a Colorado Rockies cap. So, you know, we, at least in terms of garb or attire, we are unequally yoked this morning, Austin.
Hey, and for those listening, I was telling Brian before this, as much as I would have liked to say that I dressed up for this, I did not. I just, I'm on a tight schedule. I'm going to a luncheon, so I'm having to wear a blazer and a white shirt. So otherwise, I'd be joining you in a ball cap as well, but probably an Astros hat instead. Sorry about that, Rockies.
Ooh, man, that's a tough one there. Yeah, that doesn't make me feel any better, but we're going to roll with it. So let's start just with the broadest category. How many? I'm not going to guess. How many people do you have on any given Sunday coming through the doors there at Second Houston?
Yeah, well, first we're a campus, or I'm at one campus of our six. So all six campuses are pretty large, and I think on any given Sunday, typically there's about 25,000 that are kind of flowing through all six campuses, at least in worship, and then in Bible study. Of course, it's a little bit under that, which is expected, but about 25,000.
How does that fall across the campuses? Is there one campus that tends to have the majority?
Yeah, our Woodway campus, which is the campus that I'm at, we call it the mothership. It was the first one, and from there we've started other campuses, and so it's the largest campus. It probably has the largest acreage, at least of square foot that you can actually, like, for facilities at least, not just land. And that's been the one that's kept growing and growing and building from a little small chapel. Then they built a big sanctuary, and then from the big sanctuary they built a worship center, and then just recently they put in a massive children's facility, which is amazing to see. But the other campuses aren't small either. Things in Texas truly are bigger. I'm not from Texas, and when I came and interviewed, I was like, yeah, this is a different culture I'm a part of, but you know, it's a special place.
It is interesting how that happens in a specific state, I must say. I mean, I think everyone knows that to be true. Maybe we don't ask ourselves why enough. So the reason I ask is and I think this may be difficult, but I think I would just like to see how you answer it. How would you describe the discipleship strategy at a place like that?
Yeah. When you have so many people, it's hard to, if you narrowly define discipleship to one-on-one mentorship, it's like, well, you got to have a whole lot of pastors to be discipling, or a whole lot of lay leaders, and we do have a lot of pastors and a lot of lay volunteers, but we have one sign that is kind of propped up in many different places all over our Woodway campus, the mothership, and then our other campuses. And it's somewhat of our mantra of discipleship at our church, that we try to make sure every one of our members is well acquainted with. They see it every weekend. They see it every time they're on campus. There's one in the parking lot. We try to make it very obvious what we're about. And it's we call it the 1+1+1 strategy. The 1+1+1, it means, and if you look at the signage, 1 hour of worship, 1 hour of Bible study, 1 hour of service, and that will lead to a changed life. So if you give us 3 of those hours a week, we think that you're walking faithfully with the Lord, you're serving impactfully at a local church, and you're making a difference in really all spheres of life. So the 1+1+1, 1 hour worship, 1 hour Bible study, 1 hour service, and that kind of hits the 3 bases. of discipleship for, or at least, as big of a frame as you can for all people.
So you've taken, Austin, I think a bit of an unconventional path to this role. When you and I were talking earlier this week, I would just ask, just like this 1+1+1 and that approach, how does that compare to other places where you have attended and led?
Now, I will say this is my first, Second Baptist is my first full-time ministry role. I'd been serving at other churches before, I'd interned at other churches before. And every church is unique. Every church is different. I certainly won't be, the one to say, well, this is the only one right way to do it, and anyone else who doesn't do it is not, everybody has their own structure, and everyone has their own culture and context and their own demographic too. And so I think at other churches that I've been at that were smaller, you've had the same expectation of 1+1+1, I think in their own ways. I think Second Baptist really tries to make sure it's clear, and people are really given a lot of opportunities because of we're an older church with an older kind of framework. Where a lot of churches nowadays have worship. Not many of them, or at least newer churches, have the facility space of older churches to have Sunday school classes, or what we call Bible study classes. Simply because space is so expensive, and if you're in a city, it's almost impossibly affordable, unless you're at an older church that has space. But we really try to direct people into that Bible study Sunday school class. Or other churches that don't have that, they try to say, hey, you need to get into a home group or a small group during the week. And then trying to find a service opportunity within that Bible study class, then that Sunday school class, I think is also important. Other churches that I have been at I've had Sunday school classes. It's more or less somewhat of a gathering and somewhat of a facilitation of discussion, and to each their own. I think the cool part about Second Baptist, and one of the things that drew me there when I initially began to work there, was they kind of frame each of their Bible study classes or Sunday school classes almost like mini churches within the church, in the sense that if you're a member of the class, you have a role in that class in a way that you're going to give back and contribute. We don't want people that are on the sidelines of faith. We want everybody to feel like they're contributing in some kind of way. They're on the front lines of the mission of the church, and you can do that in that context of community, whether it's on Sunday morning or whether it's in a home group or whether it's somewhere else. But we try to make that really, really clear. In fact, we're doing a spiritual gifts onboarding starting tomorrow night for our membership. It's like going to be a 4-week study about how you can discover your spiritual gifts and begin to deploy them if you're not already. So we try to nail that into our culture very well.
You may have mentioned this and I missed it. Do you have on-campus and off-campus Bible studies, or are they all on campus, or does that vary from campus to campus?
Yeah, great question. All of our Bible study classes, or what other churches would formally refer to as Sunday school classes, those are all on campus at all of our campuses. Now, we do have home groups during the week or on the weekends in addition to that on Sunday. Actually, our North Campus does Saturday and Sunday church. They're our only one that does that. But we do have home groups during the week. Like my home group meets on Thursday night at my place. And that happens on campus as well during the week. But Sunday morning Bible study, Sunday school is kind of like the bigger funnel. And then during the midweek, we have the smaller funnel of like home groups or care groups or discipleship groups beyond that.
Is that an either or for
No,
so it's both. So
it's
you
both.
might be in a home group and a on-campus Sunday morning group.
Most people who are in a midweek group at our church are already a part of our Sunday one. Hardly is it the other way around, where they're in a midweek, but they're home group and they're not in Sunday school. So that's kind of the funnel from worship, Bible study, home group, ideally. And then maybe even accountability group, smaller than that, if you want to really, narrow the relational connectivity.
So you've got 3 environments, give or take.
The options are certainly there. We hope people will take them for sure.
What kind of participation do you have from that 25,000 in one or all of those? What kind of analytics do you have?
Now, home groups are very difficult to do analytics.
I get it.
But the Bible study classes, each of our leaders have an app. We call it the SBC Playbook app. And on the playbook, we have a roster for all of the leaders to be able to take attendance, know who's where and where they are. I will say, one of the reasons why people ask me, they're like, Second Baptist is just so big. How do you get to know people? How do people not fall through the cracks? And my answer to that is, the reason why Second Baptist is so big is because people don't fall through the cracks. The follow up and the engagement and the making sure you know who's who and how they've been followed up with and whether they're in a class and what their attendance is and where they're going. We really take shepherding seriously. And being good with data is important. So in terms of Bible studies, in terms of like attendance out of that 25,000, it ranges, especially during the summer. People are always traveling. They're going where you are. They're going up to Colorado to, go to their vacation and, the school and all that. And, but generally around the 10,000 to 15,000 mark for Sunday school class attendance. And that's made of, I think, if I know my classes, up to 260 classes across all 6. So we have 58 classes at our Woodway campus for adults. These are adults only.
My back of the napkin math puts that at between 60 and 70%, I think, that number,
Yeah.
which is a pretty good number.
Yeah.
So, all right, follow-up question. I mean, obviously you're one guy and you take shepherding seriously as a leadership cohort. How do you multiply yourself?
Yeah. Now, I'm not shepherding or discipling all those many
Yeah,
people
that's right.
or those classes. Yeah, that's just unreasonable. Jesus had 12. I don't know why I think I would even be able to do 1,200. Our church is structured so that the lay people who are over these classes serve as directors, serve as teachers, serve as the evangelism director, discipleship director in each class, small group leader in each class. Each class out of the 60 or 58 on my campus have their own directors, have their own teachers that are rotating, have their own discipleship and evangelism directors, people that carry the rosters and communications. Again, we try to emphasize that everybody has a role, a gift. Where and how are you going to serve? And so making sure that I'm keeping up with those people who are over shepherd groups on my campus specifically, and who are leading Bible studies and what the studies are and where they're meeting and, all that's somewhat rolled up into my responsibility. But across the other 5 campuses, I'm helping produce curriculum for that they'll use. But it's pretty hands off. The pastors there are the shepherds.
Well, this is really helpful for listeners just because I think organization and structure is one of those things that you're always tweaking. You're always learning. And to have a relatively robust organization that helps in that way is something that I think we're all striving towards. So I'm just interested between you and the group leader. So when you pull all of your leaders together, and Austin, you say, all right, this Saturday, September, whatever, and you're going to roll that out probably 8 weeks ahead of time. We're going to get all of the leaders together. What's that number? I mean, it's more than 260 or 200, would you say 258, 260 groups? Is it more than that? Or is it just those group directors? Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, you'd be in the thousands, I guess, to pull those people together. Well, that may be overstating it, but it would be a big number of people that would self-identify as leaders in some way. They're contributors to this shepherding environment that's been established.
Yeah, we actually had our annual leadership training last Wednesday. It feels like 3 months ago. Time moves so fast and so many things happen. That was only last Wednesday. And I think we had about 250, 260 just our campus that were leaders of classes. And there's those who couldn't make it, and so there's some on Zoom, and we have updates that we're going to send out via other communications. But it is, we try to emphasize the fact that everybody has a role to play at the church, and no one's people can be spectators for a little bit. That's natural and that's normal. But once they're members and once they're committed, we want to carve out a place for someone to serve, and that's really what happens in our Bible study context.
So when you came into this role, which if I'm remembering right, you came in as like a minister to young adults, and you've moved into this role. But was this already, for the most part, in motion and your role has been just to perpetuate and steward this, or is this something
Correct.
okay, so you haven't had the heavy lift of rolling this out. It was already
No,
established.
I'm not the genius behind this. You're probably wanting to talk to Dr. Ed Young Sr., who just retired about a year and a half ago. He is a brilliant leader, and I know people know him for his charisma and for his evangelism, but I think one of the most understated things about the quality of his leadership was his ability to create an organization that could operate without him. And you'd think that even after a leader like him, generational anointed communicator like him, once he retired, that things would be, you'd see a ton of people leave and the whole church would fall apart. And it hasn't. It's doing really well. And it speaks to his ability to know that a church culture is built around the mission of God and using your gifts than just the personality on stage for an hour on Sunday morning. So I really respect that about him.
There's some things that a church of, that your size, the size of Second Houston can do that is not really scalable. And then there's some things that you can do that we can all learn from. And so this is just really interesting to me that in the way that leadership there has made a big thing relatively small in terms of how it operates. Now, the campus, the campus part of the equation, I think, figures into that you can break it off into the smaller pieces, but each one of those campuses, if you're at 25,000 divided by 6, those are still all big places.
For sure. Yeah.
So, all right, in that spirit, now you may have already answered this, but I'm going to ask this anyway. I'm just interested in how you address both what I call the primary discipleship journey that's represented by the broader church strategy, which is the 1+1+1, which is a real easily articulated, pithy, memorable approach to your discipleship strategy there. How do you address that alongside this more personal discipleship journey that's unique to the individual? You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we first met, and it seems like you had a good handle on what I was asking. But there's this discipleship journey that would be true of all of us, the 1+1+1. But then there's this, I call it elective, but it's not really elective, but it's a lot more personal. And it fills in the gaps that we have in our formation with a lot more depth and a lot more intimacy. Now, I had JT English on a recent episode at Storyline, which is down the road in Arvada, and we talked about how they're doing it and it's real similar. I think it's somewhat similar, if not very similar to what you're doing. But I'm being long-winded here, but how do you feel like you are addressing both this broader journey that's true of all of us as maturing believers and disciples, while also not neglecting that more personal journey that's more nuanced and more detailed and deeper?
That's right. No, and I didn't listen to JT's. I'm sure he gave a lot better wisdom than I'm about to say. But at least in terms of how we structure, and at least in terms of just how this is my personal philosophy, is that a church has to be both. You can't just be programmatical and expect personal discipleship to happen. And you can't just do personal discipleship and expect that you're serving people well broadly. You have to have a church that's committed to doing both programs and personal discipleship. Because you're right, the programs can address certain topics, like, for example, the spiritual gifts thing that are applicable to all people. But there is an element of personal touch that, like you said, only personal touch really understands the nuance, understands the complexity, someone's story, who they are, their background, their gifts, their calling. And it's done in the context of relationships. So, one of the things that I really have appreciated about working at Second is they really do, through the Bible study context, have a conviction of doing both at the same time through the programs every week, during the week, but also the emphasis of like, hey, you're a shepherd group leader, you're a care group leader. It is literally your formal job of this class to have 6 people under your wing who you are relationally investing in, keeping up with, creating bandwidth for. And I think this is really cool. I'll instead of being sorry, I'm getting long winded. We had a beach retreat, our summer youth camp for J High and high school. We take them all to the beach, and it's a couple thousand kids, and it's like, okay, you could just, it'd be easy to just put them all in one big room, have a big worship night, and then send them home. But one of the things that I love about our global youth director is the emphasis of that personal touch with discipleship, which is, hey, that's great. We're going to divide them up into condos of 5 to 8 kids, 2 leaders per. And those 2 leaders, it is your job, not just to make sure they don't get into trouble or get hurt or anything like that, but it's also your job to have a one-on-one conversation that you will not record, but you're going to follow up with their youth pastor and tell them, not the details, what y'all talked about, but just a general assessment of like, hey, this kid might not be a believer, just FYI. Hey, this kid is a genuine believer. He needs to get baptized. Hey, this kid's struggling with this in school, and he's really hoping that he can begin to find a path for creating a successful quiet time, given his AP classes and all this kind of stuff. So, or if there's something serious that is devolved there that, needs some kind of conversation follow-up, there's the personal aspect there with the corporate moment of a big worship night also. It's the both and approach, not the either or.
Yeah, when you and I were talking earlier, you just said it's persons and programs, and that's the persons part.
Yes.
Is there any training that goes into that, like formal or otherwise, or is it like you shepherding these leaders and that's the model approach, or is it both of those things? Do you have formal training and modeling? Is that how that works?
Yes, yeah, and that's done through our youth pastors who do a phenomenal job. They're all super gifted and fantastic, and they do about a 3-hour training for leaders before going to this youth camp. They take it very seriously, and provide all that kind of formal training, prompts, helpful things. We have an app that helps systematize things. No, we're not very short on organization at Second Baptist. We can even over organize at times, I think, which is good.
Well, I think you'd rather over organize maybe than under organize.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I chuckle. It's like, well, this is better. Yeah.
All right. So you said that you have, for lack of a better word, inherited, this pretty amazing system, but it doesn't just keep going by itself. Or I guess there are aspects of it that you would hope are self-perpetuating. But what have you done, or what has the staff done to perpetuate or sustain disciple-making environments? That is, those environments that are best suited for spiritual growth. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it improvement or not, but what measures have been taken just to sustain, this momentum and this culture?
What's that phrase? It's like love is spelled Time. Or Time. Love is spelled time. So if you're a shepherd and you're a pastor, you have to spend a lot of time in in the trenches with people and connecting people to people. And sometimes it might feel like you're socially engineering someone's experience at church. You might have to for a little bit, because it doesn't happen naturally. But that disciple making environment happens with connectivity. It happens when people feel like they belong somewhere. It happens when a culture of trust is established. And those things are all derived out of relationships. So relationships just take time. But one thing that we're really trying to focus on through our classes, through midweeks, through all the things is, don't just show up to worship. Don't just show up to an event. We want you to find a place where you belong, where you connect, where you find people there who are walking with Jesus and can help you continue to walk with Jesus. And again, there's a lot of nuance and complexity to that, but that's really our bread and butter. What we really try to emphasize more than anything is, if you're a pastor, if you're a lay leader, this is a relational job, and relationships are the currency of discipleship, not a curriculum, not a program. Relationships are.
It's still amazing to me that you've created that kind of culture in a church that size, but I guess that's how it works, and I think, if I think about it, that's probably true of a lot of mega churches. That's how they have thrived, is somehow they have tapped into a way to still be personal. And, Second Houston would be no would be no different in that respect. So one of the things that you do, and I want to get to this, with the remaining time, is you put a lot of your hours, I would think, that may not be true, but some of them anyway, towards the curriculum part of this.
Hmm.
So
A lot of hours.
you take some source material and you build around it just to make that process easier. But through this process and the craft of writing, you become a very astute Bible study creator. So I want to ask you about your process for developing Bible study content. How do you take this on? I think there are people out there that would be interesting in so what goes into an effective Bible study as you have grown in this way and developed a fairly decent acumen in developing this kind of content.
First, I'm not creating stuff on my own without a structure or a direction. I receive that from my superiors, my supervisors, and we have a team of other writers that also contribute too. We follow, like many other Baptist churches do, the Explore the Bible calendar and curriculum for our Sunday school class context, or
Here, here.
here, or our Bible study classes. We do it lecture based. It's not facilitated. It's not table discussions. It's teachers with the microphone for 30, 35 minutes who are teaching. So when you come to Second Baptist, you actually get two sermons. You get a sermon from your lay teacher or a pastor, and then you also get it in worship as well. But from there, what we do is we try to create curriculum that just gives people several more handles as they try to get a grapple of the text that they're going to teach. That's what I help produce, along with a couple other people as well, and our team that puts that out alongside the Explore the Bible curriculum. In terms of the process that's involved, I say two things: coffee and Logos. This is not sponsored by Logos software, but if you're listening, Logos is great. Use Logos. It makes things so easy. But beyond that, I mean, the Explore the Bible, or ETB, helps provide basically a really effective skeleton. And I try to reformat it and recycle it in a way that helps serve our context uniquely. And as I'm working and writing, for those who are interested in writing or curriculum development, my first word of advice is don't. Unless you really want to do it, don't. Don't waste your time. It's always been, at least in my life, a calling to write. It's just how God's made me to be. I love doing it. I get energy out of it. I'm just kind of a nerd in that way. So if you feel called and it's just something that you feel like the Lord has let you do, then do it. If not, find some other ways, I think. But in terms of like my process, I try to just go ahead and get going. Don't wait for inspiration. Get going. Start reading commentary. Start looking for patterns and connections. Like, look for things that empathize with your audience, that resonate. Keep an eye on the world, what's going on in the world. Keep an eye on God's word and how the two things are connected. And then ask for a lot of feedback. When you're done, look for feedback, ask for input. And with all of those things, just keep it on repeat. Just keep doing it. More and more and more you do it, the better and sharper and cleaner, and hopefully it gets.
Explore the Bible is we talk in terms of starting points, and I think that language is helpful. And Bible Studies for Life, it leads with application, but it is not void of textual analysis and theology. The Gospel Project tends to lead with theology, which does not mean that it's negligent of textual analysis or application. Explore the Bible, of course, then leads with the text, with theological and application components. As you are doing your work, beginning with Explore the Bible, do you tend to lean one way or the other? You just reference keep an eye on the world and keeping an eye on the Bible. Is that the secret balance there, that you're bringing in more application into that conversation or that lecture, or is it just a feel? Is it just a feel thing as you're crafting that content?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that. In seminary, my one of my preaching professors said that every preaching moment is unique because it is truth through personality. So every person, every pastor, every writer, even curriculum developer, it is channeling the music of God's word into your own kind of melodies and harmonies. And so how that comes out is going to be unique to you a little bit. It's going to be unique to your perspective, background, pain points, pressure points, callings. I think it's a little bit unique, and that's kind of the beauty of music or writing or art in general. It's a reflection of the person in a way, or their experience, and you want to make it relatable, certainly. But I think you're always just going to find some nuance there. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I don't even know. Sometimes I'm not even sure what I ask, but I just feel like, yeah, there's going to be a tendency. When I was a football coach, we would look at the other team, and when we were scouting, we would look for tendencies. And I do think that we, as writers, as content creators, we have tendencies. And I think as much as anything, I was curious as to, when you take this very textual, biblically astute resource, what are you going deeper in that way, or are you adding another layer? And for those out there listening that are attuned to content creating, I think that's just something to keep in mind. Is, all right, so what's my bag here? What am I trying to do? What's my objective? And like you said, how do I bring the full weight of what God has done in me into this at the same time? I think that's a really interesting dynamic that anyone that's in a content creating role, I think they have to be mindful of. I have one more question for you,
Sure.
and it is along the lines of curriculum as well. You mentioned earlier that curriculum is really not discipleship. I don't think that's how you said it, but that was the point, that the Bible study is not, it's an aspect of it, but it is not the same. So I would just ask you, how does curriculum then contribute to discipleship rightfully? What is the rightful place of the curriculum piece as it contributes to this broader disciples journey?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it this way, if discipleship was only about curriculum, the Pharisees would have been really good disciple makers, right? And they weren't. So there's an element to discipleship that uses curriculum, but uses it in the right way, in the right context, in the right place. And so curriculum, in my view, at least personally, I think it's supposed to make ministry easier, in the sense that it's doing a good bit of heavy lifting for the leaders or facilitators, so that they're not constantly feeling like, I got a small group in my house, there's 10 people that are going to be there, maybe 15, I don't know, and I got to make sure I have written a whole sermon or something, or I got to dive into all these commentaries. And curriculum is supposed to help the leaders feel like they don't have to do so much research and know, is this a trusted source or not? Where they're able to lean a little bit on the work of those before them, so that they can make the most of facilitating.
I appreciate that. This is Austin Gentry. He is the discipleship pastor, one of the discipleship pastors at Second Baptist Houston. He does have some resources available, and you can find those on Amazon.com. So you might want to check those out. Common spelling, AustinGentry. And as we wrap up, I'd like to thank Angie Elkins and Nikki Ogden, our producers, and engineer Donnie Gordon, without whom this would not be possible. And certainly today it would not have been possible, because Austin and I were having some tech issues. Appreciate everyone hanging in there with us, and we look forward to seeing you on down the road. This episode of Group Answers Podcast was brought to you by our team: executive producer Angie Elkins, producer Nikki Ogden, edited by Donnie Gordon. All episodes are recorded at my personal studio in Evergreen, Colorado, with the help of Riverside FM. Artwork by Lauren Urban. And I'm your host, Brian Daniel. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Group Answers Podcast.